Gather around, Skull brothers and sisters. This is Minnesota Sports Talk, presenting Under the Lights with your hosts, Justin and Dave, next in 3, 2, 1.
Good evening, Viking fans. This is Justin and Dave on Under the Lights. And of course, we're going to waste no time introducing our special guest, Matt Anderson. You know him from Climbing the Pocket. And I believe you're also the host of which show was that again? I'm just kidding.
Production value there.
Production value, absolutely. No jokes aside. The
Happy Hour.
Happy Hour, yes.
Vikings Happy Hour.
Too many things at once for me on the debut episode, but all jokes aside, we got a lot to talk about here tonight. We're going to talk about the Commanders game coming up, maybe a little review of last weekend. And, oh, by the way, a little trade went down. Actually, a handful of trades went down across the NFL. But before we get started, Matt, sorry for bumbling the name of your show, but how are you this evening?
I am fantastic, gentlemen. It's a good day to be a Viking fan, and it's a poor day to be a Packer fan, right?
Yeah. Beautiful day.
Beautiful day indeed. So, Dave, this is version 2.0 of Under the Lights. You took a break for a little bit, and we're rebranding this here. So first off, I got to say thank you for choosing me to ride shotgun here with you, because this really is your baby. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for letting me sit along for the ride, my friend.
Well, I decided to do a beauty contest, and then results came out that there was only one entry, and it was you. So I selected you from that crop of one beautiful entries that I got. So no, it was great, man. We work on the Purple Code together. So if you go check that out, we got a YouTube channel that we do shows on. I do it tonight too at 9:15 Eastern, 8:15 Central with Rap from Purple Pocket Podcast. Justin, plug your show. That's why, plug your channel, plug your show. Go ahead and do that.
Well, my channel is Purple and Gold for Days. It's been running for a grand total of about 2.5 weeks. I've been restreaming some of the stuff that I've done on TPC, but thanks to you and Rap pushing me to, expand the horizons a little bit and not be so afraid to, sit and do something on my own. But it's Purple and Gold for Days. My Twitter handle is jday_24. It's also got the link there to the YouTube page. Purple Code show that I do is called A Day with Mike and Kyla. Mike and Kyla were with TPC Canada last year, and I kind of hopped on with them. So we do a show Monday night, usually about 6:30 to 7:15. So we kind of wrap the Sunday games, particularly the Vikings, but the division and around the NFL as well, leading right into Monday Night Football. So that's where you can find us. I don't know how you're going to do this, Dave. We're going to do this show. You're going to do the Rap show. I know you've already dropped a couple of shorts here today.
I have a busy Tuesday. I actually thought it was Wednesday for some reason. But Matt, hey, tell us where we can find you on Twitter and wherever you are.
Yeah. You can find me on Twitter at @MattAnderson_8. Also, every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m., you can find me over on my YouTube, or not my YouTube channel, but Climbing the Pocket's YouTube channel, hosting Vikings Happy Hour. And just recently started picking up writing again. So you can find some of my writing out on Daily Norseman's website. I just released something this morning just about how Patrick Peterson is he's looking like his vintage self this season. Sure. And it's a nice surprise, though, given all the news that we've seen today. It's that article has probably gotten swept away, but still, nonetheless, that's where you can find me.
I was meaning to ask you. I went back and watched some of your shows. So and you probably might have a different answer. So is Dalvin Cook cooked?
Man, I tell you what, this last week he sure didn't look cooked. I use the same expression that I just used on Patrick Peterson, but it looked like vintage Dalvin Cook. There were a couple explosive runs to the outside where you just saw him make a man miss and then drive a couple extra yards. And I'm starting to think that it was strategic by Kevin O'Connell and company to just kind of not force Dalvin Cook into that workhorse role early on.
Right.
I'm excited. As long as that shoulder can hold up, I think he's good. So I retract my Dalvin Cook is cooked comment from my show the other week.
Hey,
It's a
let's
week
get
to week league, Dave.
Yeah, let's get some shout outs. Thanks for joining King of the North. Grandizer, the straw that stirs the drink. You should get him on Happy Hour. That's what we call him because he's on every single YouTube channel out there. He brings all of us together. And then East Coast Gridiron, thanks for finally having me on your show tomorrow, big guy.
Uh-oh.
Appreciate it. It's cool. He streams what's it, NCAA 14. And he plays the game streaming that.
Yeah.
Last year they had it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 14. And then there's Rap from Purple Pocket Podcast.
What's up, fam?
I call him the Purple MLK because he's bringing all the fans together. He brought me and Justin together, so he's brought everybody on this chat together so far. And so let's get talking. You're saying Cook is still got it. Did he have as good a run as Kirk Cousins did? What do you think? Was it, that run to the outside, was it as good as Kirk Cousins' run?
I think you mean Kirk Vic, right?
Or they call him Purple 8 now because
or Lamar Cousin,
I've heard him called Lamar Cousins, and Rap called him what do you call him? Kirk Jackson. But the guys on the team are calling him Purple 8, which is awesome.
Kirk's run was impressive. I mean, there's the thing with Kirk Cousins this year, which is just wild to me, is stat wise, which is what we're used to seeing. We're used to seeing him really explode in the stat sheet, but stat wise, he's not off to a great start. But from like a game management perspective, in confidence level, you're seeing that on the field week in and week out. And I actually think that Sunday's game was a really, really good example. And I just wish Kirk could go back and watch the tape of himself and, keep building that confidence. But his ability to maneuver the pocket, extend plays, keep drives alive was one of the best versions of Kirk Cousins I've seen in recent memory. So yeah, I mean, Kirk is playing well, and as long as he continues to play well, the Vikings, they stand a chance to be legit contenders within the NFC.
I'm going to say this. I did a 10-minute short the other day talking about this year's version of Kirk Cousins versus last year. And it was a play on a dumb video that my partner Mike Castellino and I did about years 1 through 4 of Cousins versus the 5 years of Dante. We don't have to get into it. But I will say this, and I maintain this. I will take this year's version of Kirk Cousins over any of the 4 that we had and anything he had in Washington. And to me, it's not close. Now, I know we would love to see a little bit more production and a little bit more consistency. But to me, I will trade production and consistency from that perspective, even though we all know that we could do a little less 3 and outs. I will take that for the ability to be clutch the way he has been. We can have the discussion is, well, he was just as clutch last year, but the defense let him. Okay, we're not going to go down all those roads. And no, Dave, I promise I won't become Rap and constantly argue that, this is the way Rap does. But jokes aside, I have seen. He'll be texting me in a few moments, be like, why are you talking about me? But to me, that Bears game when he threw that interception last year against San Francisco, he threw that same interception and it was in his head for about 2.5, 3 weeks. He just couldn't shake it. And he shook it off and copyright Taylor Swift. And he came right back and had not only a touchdown drive, which ended up being a game-winning drive, but it was like 7 minutes long. And he was calm. You never felt like he was out of control. I will take this year's version of Kirk. Hope that we can get somewhere closer in the middle. But as long as you keep the ability to, all right, we might not have played well, but I'm the leader. I have to cover up some deficiencies on my team, but I'm going to come and lead my offense down on a game-winning drive. I will take that 10 out of 10 over, you know what? A lot of times in Octobers and Novembers, he'll have that 4-game stretch where he puts up 1,200 yards and 13 touchdowns and the Vikings go 3-1 or 4-0. But at the end of it, what did that really ever get us? Not much. So I'll take this year's version of Kirk all day long.
Yeah, the interesting thing, and I don't know if you guys follow Austin Gale. He used to work for PFF, but he tweeted out today that Kirk Cousins actually ranks dead last in EPA per dropback on 2nd, 3rd, 4th downs of 7 yards and plus. So essentially saying that he's just a nightmare in obvious passing situations. So at some point, right, like the Vikings being 6-1 and the analytics, they're contradicting each other. One has got to give at some point here,
Right.
and I'm just wondering which one it's going to be.
What I'm liking is that, and it's often not talked about. Everybody's talking about, I like this version of Kirk Cousins better than last year's version of Kirk Cousins. I'm like, well, this year's version of Kirk Cousins is allowed to get to the line with 25 seconds left on the play clock and able to do checks at the line and get in and out of, blocking schemes and getting Justin Jefferson on a big play at Miami that was credited to him by his coach. So the fact that he has the ability to get up there, and obviously he's a very intelligent individual, many quarterbacks are, but to be able to get up there, be calm about it, and get into the right play. And I've said this, we haven't had this since Brett Favre, where he got up in the line, and how many times did he check out of a running play because they had 8 guys in the box, or 9, in fact, against Adrian Peterson. So I think the environment is there for him to thrive. And yeah, you're right. So there are, I'm one, who's been a Kirk defender for the past 2 years, but not the previous 2, that, hey, give him an opportunity like this. You did see him do better when there was no huddle, or at the end of games when we're trying to, in last year, there was no garbage time. There was none. Everything was decided by 1 touchdown or less, except for maybe 1 game. 1 blowout on our side, 1 blowout on their side. So just the fact that we haven't seen this version of Kirk Cousins, because we've never seen this version of the offense where we're getting up there and utilize, and not rushing to get up to the line in 5 seconds, cut, and then these guys got to jump because they know when the snap is. Why? Because the clock's running out.
Right.
So it's finally get to see this, and it's exciting for me. But yeah, I think Kirk's got to play better. So let's talk about how he's going to do better by getting a TJ Hockenson on this team. What do you think about that trade, man?
Oh man, dude, I didn't believe it at first. At first, I thought I was getting trolled by one of those, accounts on Twitter. I was like, TJ Hockenson, like why would Detroit trade him? And then to see the compensation, which I personally don't.
It confused me right away. I mean, I thought we gave up 4 picks, but go ahead.
Well, I know it's some fans maybe don't love the compensation we gave up, but when you consider how well the Vikings are doing and how poor the Lions are doing, like our 3rd rounder and 2nd rounder is going to be pretty late. You're hoping late in the back half of those, if not the last pick, right? Fingers crossed. Whereas Detroit
is picking 32 in that round, so
yeah, exactly. I don't know what the big deal is. While Detroit is likely going to be picking towards the top half. So from a pick perspective, it doesn't bother me. But what you get from TJ Hockenson, just not even on the field, you get a young player who is under control for another season. His cap hit is not devastating. It's like $9 million for next year. But you also add another weapon for Kirk Cousins in an offense that I feel needs another weapon. And this isn't to suggest that Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne are bad players. I don't think that at all. But they're not stepping up to be the true guy to help out Justin Jefferson. And I think someone like TJ Hockenson can kind of do both, right? Like Irv struggled with blocking, inline blocking, and TJ Hockenson, he's good at it. Like he is a proficient blocker, and you can also put him out in the slot, and he can stretch the field. He's a red zone nightmare for defenders. I was just watching some clips today, and the way he just boxes out defenders in the red zone, it's just reminiscent a little bit of Kyle Rudolph when you could kind of trust him and just kind of throw a fade to him and he would just bring it down. But also what you're getting with TJ Hockenson is just like your prototypical, like ideal tight end, right? When you think across the league of guys like Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, like athleticism wise, frame wise, like TJ Hockenson is checks those boxes. And so we're just kind of waiting for him to break out. So I think it's a super smart move and well calculated by Kwesi. But it's also an aggressive move to win now. So you're going to be hard pressed to find a negative in this overall trade right now. I'm thrilled, and I think most Viking fans should be.
No, I definitely agree. And I was going to say that even before finding out that Irv Smith was going to get put on IR. He could have been healthy, and I would have said the same thing. Listen, just break it down like this. So you gave up a second next year and a third the year after that. And you're getting fourth-round picks back in both of those years. So essentially you're trading down 2 rounds next year and 1 round the year after that. Now, we don't know what the 2024 things are going to be. We couldn't possibly predict that. But as it stands right now, the Vikings are going to have a 27 or later pick. The Lions are going to have top 7. So it's really only a round and a third. Now, obviously, the standings don't necessarily mean that that's how they're going to end, but as of right now. So you're talking about trading down 2 1/4, 2 1/3 rounds worth of draft and getting a guy back that this year is going to cost you pennies. It's going to cost you $500,000 because – yeah, you're on the hook next year for what, $9.5 million because they picked up his 5th-year option. But so what? That's a good thing. You're going to have to do a lot of mental gymnastics with the salary cap after this year, regardless, between what you're going to have to do with Cousins and Justin Jefferson and what are you going to do with Smith and Kendricks, et cetera. But having said that, for right now, as somebody who's sat in Minnesota his entire life and has watched other teams like the Twins and a lot of whatever else, particularly the Twins, always having some pretty daggone teams. And then maybe some unexpected success and really just needing to make 1 or 2 moves to put you over the top and never doing it. I'm not going to criticize. I don't care if it ends up that TJ ends up being a bust. I know he had been on the injury report a little bit. I don't care. Go for it. This team has got a 2-year window because they do have a lot of older players on their roster. And at the end of it, for me, why not? This conference is so mediocre. You've got 3, maybe 4 good teams. You've got the Eagles and the Cowboys in the East. Who cares about the South? You got us, and the rest of the North is garbage. And then in the West, you've got Seattle and San Francisco. Who scares you? Nobody. So why the heck you wouldn't take this time to push your chips in to say, let's just go for it? What I said on my show was, if you're going to have the stance of we're not going to trade away all of our pieces after we fire Zimmer and Spielman like Cousins and a bunch of the other older players I mentioned, that means you had faith that this team had a lot more left that wasn't utilized, and you didn't get all the money off the table that you could have with this team, which means you had faith in these players. And now that faith has been shown, albeit a lot of luck here and there, a lot of things that might not be so sustainable, that you're going to have to find other ways to not just rely on some of these great breaks that they've gotten. But so what? So, and then when I saw that it was, you're basically trading down 2.5 rounds worth of draft capital, and that was it, I was thrilled.
I'm just pretty happy it went from competitive rebuild to all in. That's what I liked. And just to look at it, this offensive line is 26 and under. Justin Jefferson is young. TJ Hockenson is 25 years old. And we probably make him a piece moving forward. I don't see us just letting him play out his contract. And even then we have, franchise tags, why not? And you brought up Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph wasn't always a good blocker, right? He made himself into one. It's like we drafted, or they drafted TJ Hockenson. I think he's been an all-around tight end the whole time. I do feel bad for Johnny Munt. He gets his first touchdown, and he's about to be number 1, right? No, sorry. one catch for 1 touchdown, 1 yard for 1 touchdown. Not going to take us to what I say, take the skull to the bowl. Is we need to bring in a TJ Hockenson. And you know what? Irv Smith Jr. might come back. And now we went from a terrible depth at tight end to amazing depth at tight end. And, hopefully he comes back healthy and just as another piece. But yeah, TJ Hockenson, and Justin made the point that, yeah, it was just like us trading down a little bit. And I think a lot of people feel a lot better after the trade that we had with the Lions now during the draft, that we've kind of made up for that. And you know what? It might have been some goodwill. hey, we didn't kill you in that draft trade. Hey, help us out on this trade. And I think there's a little love coming back from. I think there's a lot of love coming back from the Lions on that. So, and it's funny watching Tom Grossi freak out, calling collusion between us and the Lions. This is
Really?
collusion. This is collusion. So yeah,
Come on.
It is strange.
he's
though.
joking. He's just doing his bits, but it's funny.
Like, why would you trade? Like looking at it from the other side here for Detroit, you're a rebuilding team. You've got a lot of nice young pieces, right? Like their defense plays with a lot of fire, but they got some young guys on that defense. They just got Aiden Hutchinson. They have Jeff Okudah, Amon-Ra St. Brown at wide receiver. Hopefully Jamison Williams is going to turn into be that guy. They had DeAndre Swift, albeit he can't really stay healthy, it seems. And then they had TJ Hockenson, and they also drafted Penei Sewell a couple years ago in the same draft that we took Darisaw. And so, I look at that team, and I'm really like, wow, they're, get a nice rookie quarterback, and you might be set up for success. And then they go off and just trade TJ Hockenson away. And it's not like they just traded him away. They traded him away to us. They got to face this man 2 times a year now. So
Yep.
I don't understand what they're doing. I'm glad they decided to do it, and I'll gladly take TJ Hockenson for what we got for him. But yeah, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, I don't know how you can sit here tonight and be like, yeah, I'm happy about the second round pick.
Well, I think they're kind of probably used to it at this point, So that's probably how they probably do it. Listen, I know typically when you see Dave and Rap, and sometimes me, we shout out a lot of people in the chats here. Keep them coming. I'm throwing up there now, but we got a guest on here, so I can't just stop every 2 minutes. But the answer, Jade, no, nobody is surprised. It's funny, Dave. You were talking about how Rap brings people together. I was just about to say Jade too, and then boom, she pops in there. But having said all that, to everybody in the chat, keep them coming. I'm going to throw them up there, but I don't have. I can't do the Rap thing tonight and say everybody's name while we got a guest on there. So
you can totally do it, man. The audience is what makes these shows. It's so fun to interact with the audience.
Justin,
I know when I'm hosting.
No, I'm not saying no interaction. I'm saying I'm not going to stop in the middle of Matt's sentence. Oh, hey, thanks, Jay. Oh, hey, just that's all I meant. But,
hey guys, I don't want to be rude to the guests. I want to be rude to you guys.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, these guys are the regulars that always show up on and we show up on their shows, and it's great. Jade Sports and Stars, she just broke 1,000 a couple weeks ago.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, she does the horoscope of the Vikings, so it's pretty fun to watch that. And she did a British accent for an entire week when we were in London, and she basically did the play-by-play during the game in a British accent. I have told her to do regional accents, so she's got to come up with one for the Beltway up in Washington D.C. I don't know what that accent is, but she's gonna have to study up. Nikki's in the house. Nice to see you. All right, I'm sorry I missed most of you. Thomas Skull from Toronto, Illinois. It's an international affair today.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Now, hey, Matt, what do you think of our? It's been well documented. We got some aging defenders, but what do you think how they played in this last game? It seemed like all the old guys decided to say, "Hey, we're not dead yet." And a lot of individual effort made this defense that we've called the shell defense look like a ball hawk and take it to him defense. What's your viewpoint on this defense?
Yeah, it was my overall viewpoint on this defense is I don't necessarily trust them, but I do think that the scheme that Ed Donatel has them playing is I think it does benefit the aging veterans a little bit to kind of play that shell defense. But in regards to Sunday, holy cow, I mean, you can kind of go across the board, right? And we can start with Patrick Peterson. Obviously, I talked about him at the beginning of the show with the article I wrote, but Patrick Peterson was just doing some veteran moves that we didn't get to see from him last year. Just his play style, the way he was reading the field. I don't know if you guys probably know Luke Braun.
Yeah.
And so, he tweeted out too, it's almost like he had a tell for what the Cardinals were doing, and maybe he did, because the way the rest of the defense was playing as well was lights out. I mean, I haven't seen Eric Kendricks move and read the field so much and play with so much urgency than I did on
everywhere.
Sunday. There was one specific play where he dropped back into zone coverage, read Kyler Murray's eyes, and was driving on the ball before Murray even threw it and stopped the runner short. Jordan Hicks came up big. Obviously a revenge game for him, so he's probably a little bit more amped. Harrison Smith, you know, he was a little slow on that interception return, but he still got the interception.
Come on, tuck the ball, man. Tuck the ball. You're scaring the crap out of me. Was holding it out here like this.
He never does, man. He always holds it out there.
Well, maybe if Patrick Peterson had blocked for him on that play, he might have gotten somewhere.
Patrick Peterson just stood up and did this, and he didn't go try to block anybody. Maybe he just didn't. Maybe he thought he would block someone in the back and he'd get a 15-yard penalty.
That's
just
exactly
didn't trust
what I was
himself.
thinking.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I think the only guy that maybe had an iffy, well, I don't think he had a very good day, was Dantzler, because he had like 9 tackles and all of them solo, and that's because it was his guy that caught the ball. But who's going to have a day against DeAndre Hopkins? That guy was amazing.
Yeah,
it reminded me a lot. I'm going to give him a pass. I'm going to give him a pass on that one.
It reminded me a lot of when, was it 2-3 years ago, when Mike Hughes just got torched by Amari Cooper when we played against Dallas.
Yeah.
Just everything thrown that way was just caught, and it was just like, yeah, this is not going well.
One of the things I think about the defense, and I've probably been saying, is I know what he's trying to do. I know what Donatel's trying to do. He's honestly funneling everything to the middle. In fact, he funnels it over to Dantzler, because I would see Patrick Peterson playing close to the line, and Dantzler would be playing 10 yards back. In this last game, I just been begging for us to disguise things, and I thought they did it finally, especially with the pass rush. They had 5-6 guys, up at the line, that you didn't know who was going to go. And for some reason, they didn't think Zadarius Smith was going to go because he's standing right in the middle of the line. He is one of the pass rushers. He's not going to drop back. Right. And he just was burning them all day. And he's been a pleasant surprise. I guess he's number 1 in tackles for loss and number 1 in sacks, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he's tied for league in sacks.
Yeah, it's freaking having a great year. People have questioned Kwesi's moves and stuff like that all off season, and just to say, hey, Zadarius Smith, TJ Hockenson, heck, giving Tomlinson another year, put him at defensive end. Hopefully he comes, he gets healthy here, because he's been having a Pro Bowl year. Just having the faith and putting the right pieces. Sometimes it takes it. The old adage was it takes like 2-3 years to switch from a 3-4 or a 4-3 to a 3-4. I think we did it in 1 year with the players they got in effect, especially against the run. We are one of the better run defending teams in the league. People don't realize that we've kept every team, I think, below their average. And now we've only given up 70 yards to a quarterback that sometimes runs for 50, 60 by himself. So it was a pretty good game. And the fact that he changed our run defense in 1 year that's been horrible for the past at least 2 years to what it's doing now. And I can see what Donatel's trying to do, because he's teaching turnovers. He's teaching turnovers. And this defense, if you give them opportunities, that's just more opportunities for us to take the ball away too. I wanted to see disguising and more aggressiveness, and I saw it this last game.
Shout out all day, Ed. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Thanks all day, Ed.
Shout out to Nikki as well. Not even halfway through the season, Dave. So, but to your point, we all know how horrible that defense was a year ago, whether it's giving up points in the last 2 minutes of the second and fourth quarters, occasionally being able to get a stop. And by saying occasionally, I mean not very often. Listen, I know some of it had to do with the environment. I mean, Jay brought up a good point earlier about Kirk putting him in a good environment. I think even defense was probably getting a little sick of Mike Zimmer's act. And when you have a boss that knows he's on the way out and it's just not a good working environment, to your point, sometimes a change in scenery or a change in leadership can make a lot of difference. Listen,
and we were decimated by injuries too.
There's
a lot of the time. The last couple of years, it was pretty bad. And even Kendricks was hurt a lot of the season. So
I will say this, my girlfriend and I were actually at that game Sunday, and Zadarius Smith, to touch back on him for just a minute, when the Vikings have the ball, I pretty much always just watch Justin Jefferson because it's just kind of ridiculous sometimes seeing how he quite literally
Ed Ingram.
Well, yeah, he quite literally though, he is literally open on almost every play. It's ridiculous, but defensively, I kind of just watched the whole thing. But by the middle of the second quarter, I'm just watching Zadarius this entire game because it's like they told him something that they didn't tell the rest of the guys. I mean, you made the point earlier. It's like they kind of had to tell, but Zadarius, every time he really, really was coming in off of the edge, he would always manage to just slightly slip by somebody. It's just like, how the heck does he know exactly?
It's like Palomalu from the Steelers.
Yes. Yeah. Now, again, my biggest
different position, but
right. My biggest concern at this point was Zadarius is like, just stay healthy. That's all we need.
And when he went down, I was like, oh my God,
I know
the season.
I was like, oh, please get up. Like, I don't know which one had me cringing more, that or when Adam Thielen, looked like he got shot for a second and a half before he popped up. But yes, it's one of those deals where Zadarius at this particular point in time, even though he's only been here, half a season, he is the heart of this defense right now. I know you still got your legacy players in Harrison Smith, Eric Kendricks, and to a certain extent, a little bit of Patrick Peterson. But right now, Zadarius Smith is the heart of this defense for me. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, he brings that energy, much like Everson Griffin used to bring for the defensive line and the defensive unit. I mean, we all know what happened with Everson Griffin, and when he was gone, this team lost its spark. Right? And I'm not here to suggest that there aren't leaders on that defense, but that defense was built with a lot of quiet leaders. Harrison Smith is a quiet leader. Eric Kendricks is a quiet leader. Danielle Hunter is a quiet leader.
Right.
Zadarius Smith is not. and Patrick Peterson isn't either.
You're right. Very true.
And so I think those two individually have exceeded every expectation I could have had for them this season. And going back though to the whole defense, there is one concern that I do have about them, and I hope it doesn't burn us because I noticed it 2 or 3 times on Sunday. But Dave, you had mentioned, the aggressiveness of Donatel's defense and kind of preaching turnovers. I hope we don't get jaded by that because I've noticed on a few occasions that specific players are going in not for the tackle, but for the ball, and they're missing tackles. And then
Kendricks back to back.
Yep, Kendricks did it back to back.
I was like, oh Jesus.
And so there's a fine line there. Like you can be aggressive, and I'm down for that, right? I mean, without that aggressiveness, we don't beat the Bears probably. Dantzler stripping that ball out of Amir Smith-Marsette's hand, that was probably taught by Donatel to go get the ball. But you're going to take the good with the bad here. So you win it there. You let up a big touchdown on Sunday when Eric Kendricks tries to do it. So hopefully they take that in review film and say, all right, let's be a little bit more calculated about how we're doing this and make sure that we got some coverage behind us, or at least somebody else coming to help out, because I would hate to see a game lost that way.
Hey, man, before the season, go ahead, man.
What's up, Jays? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. I'll put it up there one more time just for, I don't know if Dave saw you or not. But
they call me old head
right.
or old ass Dave. They call me both.
No, to your point though, man. To your point, right after that whole sequence went as follows: the Vikings, Arizona, got the ball after the Vikings had just retaken the lead. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go get some snacks. I'm going to go to the boys' room, whatever. So I'm standing in line and look up on the monitor, see the Harrison Smith interception. So I run back. My girl was like, how'd you get back so fast? I'm like, well, because it was on the side of the field where offensively they were coming towards the end zone that we were close by. So I'm like, well, I got to
Tonga made that play.
Yeah.
Tonga made that happen, which was awesome.
But then it's just like, I don't even get back a second time, and Arizona's already in the end zone. It's just like, listen, we love opportunistic defenses. We love the ability to take the ball away. And oh, by the way, we'll talk about this a little more in a little bit, but thank you, finally, offense, for not only scoring after a turnover, but scoring 2 touchdowns after 2 turnovers, something that they have struggled with a little bit.
And scoring in the third quarter.
There's
that. Was
I think
something new. 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. What the hell? We scored. We're averaging 1 point a game in the third quarter.
Went from 6 to 20 in one. Or, well, no, 19 because we missed an extra point. But the point was that yes, we all love that, but that doesn't mean you just let a guy run 40 yards down the field in 2 plays just because you're trying to strip him the whole time. We got to find a little bit of a middle between those two.
Well, we had to give some love to another player other than DeAndre Hopkins. So
yeah, there you go.
Hey Matt, I want to know, what were your thoughts before the season? I don't know them, so I'm not setting you up. What were your thoughts of like a record before the season, and what do you see us going forward? I personally had us 12-5. A floor of 10, high of 13, and I did have us going 7-1 into Buffalo. I feel the only game I thought I was a little worried about was the Miami game, because it was in Miami. It would be the Heat. So far I'm doing pretty good. Where were you at, and where are you thinking we're gonna be?
That is awesome. I wish I was that spot on. I got to go back to this off season a little bit.
It doesn't happen too often.
Why don't you buy a Powerball ticket, Dave?
I think it's $1 billion now. I think. I don't know.
Something like that.
It'd be a good time
Mega
to win.
Millions, I think, is $1 billion.
We got to go back to the offense to give a little bit, or the off season to get a little more context. But I was definitely one of those fans who, I was a Zimmer defender, and so I was sad to see him go. I knew it was time to see him go, but I was still sad to see him go. Right. And by the way, never a good opportunity to segue into this, but condolences to the Zimmer family. Adam Zimmer passed away yesterday, and that family has been through far more tragedies than any family should have to endure. But
yeah, that's just what can you say?
Thoughts out to them, and hopefully, they can gather together and get through this, but that is tough. But onto a brighter note here. I was down for this team to tear it down and rebuild. I knew we had aging veterans. I wasn't, I thought it was a good opportunity or a good offseason to trade Kirk Cousins. I think there were candidates out there that would have taken him. We even had a rumored trade, I think, to the Browns at one point for some picks. So that kind of started, my thought. And then, the signing was Zadarius Smith, and just really Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell saying, hey, we're in on this season. It had me thinking a little bit that, maybe they could do something, but I still settled that I thought they'd end up around 500. And it wasn't because I didn't think they had talent. We just didn't know what Kevin O'Connell was going to be as a head coach. I think we all knew he had potential, but in-game situations, play calling, we very, very easily could have ended up with a Nathaniel Hackett.
Oh.
And we all see how that's going in Denver. And so that was kind of why I wasn't ready to go all in on this team. But through 8 weeks, you can bet your ass that I am all in. I know this is a Diet Coke, but inside is the purple Kool-Aid. I am all ready to go on this team. So I had them at 500, and they are 2 games away from that.
So yeah. Well, 2.5, with these odd numbers now, but
make me eat my words, Minnesota.
There you go.
So you got us getting swept the rest of the season then.
I guess technically.
Yeah, I think there was a good
I'm ready to be wrong.
I think there was a good 50-50 split on the Vikings on what people thought they'd do. And I think a lot of the pessimism came just because we had high expectations the last 2 years. I think we had a little more expectations last year than we did in 2020 because we didn't know what our defense would look like. Yeah. And then we were like, okay, we fix the defense, and then Danielle Hunter gets hurt. And then there goes the season, right? And so there goes the defense. But I was a little more optimistic just because I thought we would have opened it up on offense. So I'm not very smart. because we haven't opened it up on offense, and we're freaking 7. We're 6-1. So I can't say that I was spot on in Nostradamus, the purple Nostradamus. I definitely not that, because I expected our defense to be different, and I expected our offense to be different. So yeah, we're squeaking by, but it has a lot to do with our coaching and the fact that, hey, we're focusing on the details, like end of halves and end of games, and we hired the right guys, like our special teams coach. I just wish we could figure out the kicker position. Come on, do something. I'm like poking a stick at, hey, do something. Let's get a good kicker. But I hope Greg Joseph can turn it around, man. I can't say I have faith on him. It's kind of one of those things, like, we only have kicking opportunities that are 50 yards or longer. That's that is a problem, it seems, for him right now. So, which didn't seem like it was in the preseason. We were really optimistic going into the season. What do you think we're going to do? What do you think is going to happen at the kicker position? Can we do anything?
That's the key.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. They're obviously not going to go full Rick Spielman, Mike Zimmer, and just cut him. Like, I don't think this staff is built that way. I think they're more so ready. And I mean, their words would suggest that they're going to try and work this out rather than move on. Though they did bring in kicking competition earlier this year, right, in training camp, or maybe it was.
They didn't even let him kick in the preseason.
That is true. That is true.
But in camp he missed like 3 kicks or something like that, and like I forget if it was like a scrimmage or whatever. But yeah, they released him.
I go back to, when it comes to kickers, at least, I go back to an interview that Ryan Longwell had with the guys over at Score North.
Yep.
And there are small details that go into kicking, and a lot of it is confidence and a lot of it is technique. And I guess I would just hope that the Vikings would reach out to an expert and have somebody come in and kind of help it out, because I do think that we've seen Greg Joseph play well. Like, 50-yard field goals are tough to do, and I think more often than not, he's probably going to make them. He's hit a bad stretch, but I'm not ready to give up on him. The one thing I will say is you might see the Vikings start going for it on 4th down a little bit more in that range.
That's what I'm talking about.
And it's not to suggest that they don't have confidence in Greg Joseph, but if you're going to miss from there, you might as well be trying to get the first.
Well, like in the Lions game, we had that situation where it was 0-0, and then we kicked a field goal, right, and we miss it wide right by I don't know how many yards, and we gave the ball midfield to them, and they go down and score right away. Yeah. That was a situation where I was like, we need to punt there, because why set a NFL why set a Greg Joseph record on the first play of the game? Let's pin him back and play the field position. Like, of course, this last game where he got kicked, where he got blocked, it was like end of half and no time remaining, right? And my feed went out, so I never did get to see it, but I understand that he kicked him in the head.
Yes,
so
right in the face mask.
You made a point about Ryan Longwell, and I think you might have heard that too, was that he actually reached out to the Vikings about Carlson and how he could have helped him, and the Vikings didn't return his phone calls.
Thanks,
you love that.
Yeah. Yeah, he reached out to the Vikings, and he said this in a podcast. I forget, maybe it was Score North, but yeah, he reached out to him, and they never returned his call, and the rest is history. Now he's the highest scoring player in the league.
He's arguably the best kicker behind Justin Tucker.
Probably, I'd say so.
That's Minnesota luck for you.
Of course it is. I mean, I'll say this.
I bet it would take more to trade for him than it would be for TJ Hockenson.
Well, you might not be wrong there, Dave. Wow. I'll say this: if it's 4th and 6 or less, and you're in that edge territory, you either punt the ball because you got a bomb kicker right now, or you go for it. Because if you go for the field goal and miss, that's 7 extra yards, you're going backwards. So that would be the equivalent of if you went for it on 4th down and you took a sack. Okay, to me. Yeah, if it's the end of the half and you have no other choice, okay, you have no other choice. One thing that did bother me a little bit about this past week's game is once they got to the point where they had to take their timeout and they had 11 seconds left, they ran 2 plays to get 3 yards. It's like, Here's an idea. When there's, 20 seconds left, you can try a Hail Mary then, because they're not quite expecting it quite then. They're expecting you to still try your sideline routes or your 15-yard in the middle where you sprint to spike the ball. Just take one shot, and you know what? Yeah, I only got to see one replay of that kick. Yeah. Had he not kicked it into that player, it still was going wide left by about 6 yards.
Yeah. And that's what his extra point was like too. And I heard this brought up, and I'm gonna just refute this idea. Let's just go for 2 on every, because it's over 50%. No, because we don't have that many goal line plays that we want to show everybody our goal line plays to go for 2 every time. Right. That would just be completely crazy. And I know there was this team that did that a while back.
Yeah, it was the Steelers.
Is like, you eventually got to stop it, because what plays are you going to run when you need it for a touchdown? So yeah, this whole idea, well, let's just go for 2 from now on. Well, yeah, let's just give up. We probably have a playbook of like 20 plays for the 2-yard line, so we can't use them all up on extra points. But yeah,
I will play devil's advocate. Who are you going to cover now?
Say what?
Yeah.
I said I'll play devil's advocate. Who are you going to cover now? Like on fourth down, conversion attempts or 2-point conversions.
Right.
Like if you put Cook in the backfield with Hockenson, Thielen one side, Osborne, Jefferson to the other side, like who are you going to cover? You're not going to double Jefferson on that, and TJ Hockenson can easily exploit a safety or a linebacker. So if you're going to put your slot corner on him, he's probably going to be a little too short for Hockenson. I don't know, man. I think this. I'm not suggesting they're going to go for 2 on every touchdown that they score.
Well, I didn't say you were, but I did. I think I heard that on your show last night by Justin. I think I forget who. I think it was mentioned on your show by maybe Mike. I know he's maybe kidding, but yeah.
Mike gets a little work. Mike's my boy.
Let's just go for 2.
Let's just go for 2. Okay, come on, dude. We got a little bit more judicious about it. Hey, real quick, thanks, Granger. We love you. We appreciate you, and everybody who's in the room right now, we very much appreciate you for joining us on our reboot episode. Hit that like, comment button, and subscribe, and all that other good jazz. And thanks again to our special guest, Matt Anderson from Climbing the Pocket. We haven't given him enough love yet. Why don't you give us your pertinent info, Matt? We don't want to wait till the end, like we promised we wouldn't do.
Like where you can find me?
Where can we find you? Yes, sir.
Well, you can find me over on Climbing the Pocket's YouTube channel. You can find me on Twitter at @MattAnderson_8. And you can find me on Daily Norseman for writing. So there's a lot of different ways that you can get a hold of me.
And if you haven't gone over to Purple and Gold for Days, go over and subscribe to Justin's new channel. And appreciate of course, Minnesota Sports Talk, home of Skull World and the Purple Hulk. So, I appreciate everybody, and thanks for joining us on our relaunch of Under the Lights. And of course, because we have 3 people, the name is not there, but we'll get this worked out eventually.
See if there's a way we can get it. No, that doesn't work.
No, we're gonna have to fix that.
Yeah, that doesn't work either.
A production value. All right, guys.
But anyway, in all seriousness, so I guess I'll answer the question. I had them coming in at somewhere between 7 and 10 wins, because that's what they always do, is somewhere between 7 and 10 wins. Now, it looks like they're going to shatter that.
Except when we win 13.
Okay, let me put it to you like this. Let's go down memory lane real quick. Since the Will family has bought this team, this is year 18 for them. Okay, so in the 17 years they've owned this team, I like to say, and of course now that there's 17 games, this kind of changes the numbers a little bit. But there's 3 kinds of teams. There's teams that win 11 games or more. There's teams that win 6 games or fewer. You know what they are. Those are the really good teams, and those are really bad teams. And then you got that group in the middle that's at 7 to 10. That's kind of mediocre. The Vikings have had 11 wins or more under the Wilfs 3 times in 17 years. They've had 6 wins or fewer only 4 times since the Wilfs have owned this team. 10 out of 17 years, they've been between 7 and 10 wins. So it wasn't all that ridiculous to say, well, look at that. We're just going to run it back with these same players that we've been running it back with. I mean, we can have the discussions as to when they traded Diggs, was that the time to, hit the reset button. No, they chose to run it back for 2 more years, and it got them 7-9 both times. Now, they ran it back this time, and so far, it's looking a lot better, like it might actually work this time. But no, saying 7-10 isn't completely outlandish. But, I said my upper echelon would be is that, if everything went right for them, they would probably get 11 or 12. And so far, everything has gone right for them. And realistically, I mean, I think they got 10 games left. I mean, they could go 5-5. They will go 500 for the rest of the season, and they're at 11 wins.
Feels good.
Obviously, we're shooting for higher than 11 wins now because of how the season has gone. But I guess I'll ask you this one, Matt, and then I'll, Dave, you can too. Realistically for you, going into this season, I'll ask it both ways. Going into the season and now, what would you say your quote-unquote threshold for, when you get evaluated at work, you got your meets expectations, exceeds expectations, and below expectations. Where would you say your threshold is for meets expectations, both going into the season and now?
So like what I thought their win total would be, like what would
win total, where they ended the season, any however you want to answer it, however you want to quantify it.
Yeah. So meeting expectations for me, like the baseline was wild card playoffs. I mean, with 7 teams making the playoffs now, the NFC is not that good. And so they were close enough last year that I thought like 7th seed is probably like they would have met my expectations.
And now, what do you think your baseline is? Can't be that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough only because the Eagles are probably the only like real team we've played.
Right.
Not to discount their wins, like I'll take the wins. I need to see this team play against Buffalo, and I need to see this team play against Dallas. They don't even have to win those games. I just need to see them play against them, see what kind of fight they have, because they laid an egg on Monday Night Football versus the Eagles, and I don't think that was a true reflection of who this team really is.
Right.
For them to meet my expectations from this point forward, I would say you got to win at least one playoff game, and not even just win a playoff game. You have to host that playoff game and win it. So is that good for you?
Oh, it's your take. it's your take.
I was a little confused by the question, so I wanted to make sure I was getting what you asked for.
Well, I'll put it like this, and then we'll if Dave wants to chime in, he can. Going into the season, because I had higher expectations than what some would say was fair for a first-year head coach, I said my minimum expectations are, I don't care what your regular season record is, whether you are winning the division or whether you are a wild card team. You need to get to the divisional round of the playoffs by hook or by crook, whether that's being the 1 seed and not playing to get there, or winning the division and winning a home game, or getting into the playoffs as a wild card and winning a road game. I don't care. That's my baseline. And some people told me that that's kind of high, first-year head coaches. And I said, no, the Vikings decided they're not going to tear it down or take a few steps back. They can call a competitive rebuild all they want. What it really is no, we're going to do what we've always done. We're going to call a competitive rebuild so that in case it fails, we have a little bit of a face-saving slogan. They are the ones who made the decision. We think Zimmer was the problem. That's all. Leadership, that sort of thing. So to me, those expectations that I had on them was of the Vikings' own doing by how they decided to proceed in the offseason. So I don't care if they got in as a wild card or if they won the division. Doesn't matter to me. So to me, if you miss the playoffs, and I said this going into the season, now this is my going into the season, you miss the playoffs, to me it's a failure because those are the expectations you set for yourself. Now, as you say, it's almost it's too high to say it's a failed season if they don't get to the NFC Championship game, but it's going to be a disappointment to me if they don't, because right now you just need to take care of your own business, and you've got this 2 seed. I know Seattle and San Francisco could, finally start putting things together, and we'll see how good Seattle really is in the next couple of weeks. But you have no threat in your own division, and you have no threat in the South, which means by definition, it would be virtually impossible to be anything but the 3 seed. Yeah. Hang on to that 2 seed, because if Seattle ends up winning the West, you can say what you want about Geno Smith, resurgence, this and all that other good stuff. I want no part of going to Seattle, the divisional round of the playoffs. So to me, it's, you better be hosting a game in the divisional round of the playoffs. That's my minimum expectation, is now not just getting there, but hosting one. What say you, Dave?
Here's a phrase for you quick.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
In some Viking fans may get triggered by this statement, but the Vikings are in control of their own destiny at this point.
Yeah.
And the only reason I say that is because when you talk about teams we still have to face, you're facing the NFC East this season. And granted, you lost to the Eagles, but if you really want to, keep that number two seed, you'll have good chances to do so versus the Dallas Cowboys in a few weeks, and as well as the New York Giants. So
you are correct.
Control their own destiny.
The cool thing about that is they're both in the Eagles division. So no matter how good they are, even if they have a better record than us, as long as one of those teams is the division winner, we still can hold the 2 seed, even with worse records than Dallas. And I think it'll be Dallas. I don't think it'll be the Giants, but who knows? We've seen crazier things, but yeah, my expectations now is like we need to go to the NFC title game. I think we're good enough to get there. And it means going through. And my hope is it's going to be a home game against either like a Giants or Dallas. And what a way to find out what that result would be like is playing Dallas at home. And yeah, I agree with you, Matt, 100%. Let's see and I've said this on my last live show we did. Let's see what we look like against Dallas. I'm going to let Buffalo be Buffalo. Right. I'm worried about that. That's a road game and freaking God knows what's going to be up there. Might as well make it the Eagles game. But that Dallas game is where I'm going to judge myself. And hopefully that's going to, that's just going to be what it would look like when we're playing home in the playoffs.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, to me, I think it would be too purple Kool-Aid, too Ducky and Bunny to say, no, we can have a great game against the Commanders. We can start putting it all together, and then they can flex us to the afternoon game on Sunday, and we can go in there and be competitive. Listen, all I care about the Buffalo game for right now is I don't want to get blown out like Philly. I want to show that if we do face a team like that in the playoffs, that we can hang with them. If they won that game, okay, sweet. But it's one of those just don't get killed. And sometimes that can be a loser's mentality. But in this particular instance, when you're talking about the best team in the NFL, in my opinion, at home, just be competitive. If you lose a close game, you lose a close game. The Vikings are not going to go undefeated the rest of the season one way or the other. They're just not. But I agree with you, Dave. The real test is going to be that home game against Dallas. But actually, the whole test is going to be the next 3 games after Washington, because you go Buffalo, you got Dallas, and then you got the Patriots at home. And, oh, by the way, that's on Thanksgiving, so only 4 days rest after the Dallas game.
Yeah, and prime time.
Oh, there's that too. You said it, not me.
And one of these days, we might have to let Matt go. I think we told him he'd come on for a few minutes, and we're at an hour and 20 mark. So,
Matt,
I think I got Rap tapping his foot, waiting for me to show up at my other show.
Oh, I didn't realize it had gone that long.
Yeah, I get the moderator, not even looking at the clock.
Time flies when you're having fun, guys.
Hey, you guys are providing such good content. I wasn't going to be the one to stop.
I'm glad you were my first guest on my new show, so I appreciate it. Thank you. I just met you, so thank you for being so gracious to give us your time.
No,
a person you've never even talked to before.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think I told Justin this, but the Vikings community, I mean, everyone's grinding out there, and they all love this team. It's about time we bring it all together and share the love across all platforms. So I'm happy to be here and thankful for you guys to have me on.
Well, you've got I'll run it by the boss man later, but from this side, whenever you've got a free 20 minutes that you want to turn into an hour, you definitely and I'll tell you what, if it doesn't work out here, I got a couple other ones I know that could very easily be open for it. But
I wouldn't mind getting on that happy hour. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
I'm gonna hit you up one time.
Yeah, for sure. We'll work something out for sure.
All right.
You're one of the gold standards. You and Ted and Drew. And whether you love them or hate them, Purple Daily and Matthew Collar, you guys are the Mount Rushmore. You're on the Mount Rushmore of Viking content creators, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you on our inaugural episode here, Matt. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
And cue the music.
Cue the music. Well, I was going to say, thanks everybody for joining us in the chat. We had a great time. I'll be better about interrupting ourselves next time to make sure we get those chats across. No, I'm just kidding. But all jokes aside, as Matt said, this is all about the fans that come and support us, that come and listen to us. Please like, comment, and subscribe on all the channels above that we talked about. Purple and Gold for Days, Minnesota Sports Talk, as well as Climb in the Pocket. Thanks again, everybody. Vikings trade. Make a trade in a bevy of trades in the NFL. Who says the NFL trade deadline is boring? Not today. Thanks again for joining us. Have a great rest of your evening.
Gather around, Skull. Thank you, Viking fans, for listening. Make sure you catch my other episodes. Also, make sure you subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Skull Vikes.